Greetings, everyone, from at least 6 feet away. First and foremost, I hope everyone is doing well and you each are as comfortable as possible. Most importantly, staying safe and keeping each other safe by following the recommended protocol. For right now, I'm going to keep my coronavirus thoughts and observations to simply wishing you all the best and reminding you all to protect yourselves physically, but pay close attention to your mental health. By the way, my name is Thomas Reed, host and producer of this podcast, where we bring you compelling people impacted by all degrees of blindness and disability. Occasionally, I share my own experiences as a man adjusting to becoming blind as an adult. All of this, by the way, has been brought to you since 2014 from the safe and sanitized studio located in my home. So really, ain't nothing new here, folks. We've been riding ahead of this curve for a minute. So before we start the episode and I serve up this goodness, let me wash my hands. Breathe. My mind. Breathe. My mind. Radio.
I'm Matthew Shifrin, and I'm a blind musician and inventor.
You may be familiar with Matthew. He's received a fair amount of press in regards to his work with Lego, specifically his work making Lego instructions accessible to blind children. It all began when he himself, as a 5 or 6-year-old, followed a very specific set of instructions by his close family friend.
Lila, who later created the text-based instructions, she and I were driving back from somewhere. She stops the car, yells, "Get out!" Okay, I get out. She says, "Pick up this crate." This crate is like half my body weight. And so we managed to muscle this crate into the trunk of her car, and then she says, "Come on, open it." And I open it, and this crate is full to the brim with Lego bricks. And that's really how my journey with Lego started.
Matthew began building Lego sets with the help of his parents.
Because they could read the instructions and I couldn't.
Lego instructions are visual. They're diagrams detailing how to connect the various pieces, completing the design.
We are mainly building Bionicles, which are these action figures that Lego made. They were very formulaic. If I built one of them, then I could build the rest of a certain type on my own. Those were the only types of sets that I could really build on my own.
Building the sets required the help of Matthew's parents.
So they'd just say, "Okay, you need to find such and such piece." And I'd go scrounging around the bottom of the box to try and find something. And then they'd say, "Okay, well, here's where you put it." And I'd put it there, and we'd go piece by piece. And it would just take 4 or 5 hours to build a $20 set that was, 200, 300 pieces.
While appreciative of his parents' dedication and time, Matthew recognized the difference between his Lego experience and that of his friends.
They were building sets all the time. They would come into school and they'd say, "Hey, I built a spaceship yesterday." And I'd say, "Oh, that's so great. How did you do it?" And then there'd just be silence. And then they'd be like, "Well, I looked at the instructions and they told me what to do and I just followed them." And I just remember thinking all this time, "Oh, I wish I could do that."
In case you're thinking Lego is just a toy,
when we look at Lego's instructions, they really provide a lot of insight into how things are made, how things are built, how mechanisms work. And when I built on my own, I really had none of that vocabulary.
This was evident from the experience his sighted friends had with Lego.
They could build trains that ran, crossbows that shot actual darts, because they were familiar with the engineering concepts that made these devices work.
Working with his parents gave Matthew some insight.
But as the blind builder, I was just following directions. I had no idea where we were going. Yes, I knew it was some sort of train that we were building, but I had no idea what it would end up looking like, as opposed to the parents who did. There wasn't a lot of vocabulary gained even then because I couldn't see the instructions on my own. I couldn't flip ahead. I couldn't imagine structures in my head because I had no vocabulary.
Remember Lila, the family friend who had Matthew lug that first box of Lego bricks into the car? On his 13th birthday, she brought him the next step in his access.
She gives me this big cardboard box, this big fat binder. And mind you, this binder is thick. We're talking 2 copies of the Yellow Pages thick. In this binder, there are these instructions that she has hand brailled on a Perkins Braille typewriter. And in the box is this Middle Eastern Lego palace. And this palace is big, 830, 840 pieces. These instructions she created completely on her own. She invented her own vocabulary to name every type of Lego piece that was in that set.
That was the vocabulary Matthew longed for.
Put a flat 6x1 vertically on the table. Put a flat 2x1 on its rearmost button overhanging to the right horizontally. Put a flat smooth 4x1 vertically to the front. I got to a point where I was able to read instructions and imagine what it would be like to build a certain model or a certain subsection. That's just spatial awareness and spatial reasoning, these very sighted skills that are developed over many years in sighted children. The fact that I was able to really visualize on my own was a very valuable skill, and I would argue an under-taught skill when it comes to blind children.
Getting access to Lego instructions was just a part of Leela's goal.
Her goal was that I should have the same experiences as other sighted children. And so she brailled board games, she brailled books, she did all of this stuff. But Lego was the one thing that she just could not figure out how to make accessible for many, many years, just because the instructions were pictures.
Once Matthew gained access,
I just wanted people to have this resource because I had benefited so much from it. Not all blind kids have people who can write instructions for them. Everyone deserves to be able to build and to learn from what they build.
Making this information available to other blind children required some steps.
We had to create more instructions, build more, develop some sort of language, make sure that this was durable. And then we had to get it out to blind people. I think Lego themselves were always an end goal, but blind people had to come first because we had to be sure that blind people could engage with this content as much as I could.
Realizing the instructions could be produced digitally eventually led to the website.
LegoForTheBlind.com, where all our instructions live. There's 30, 40 sets there. Our end goal was always getting it to a larger entity.
Would you consider yourself an advocate?
Sure. Advocacy is like a blob. You can shape it and mold it. One might argue that Leela's making those instructions was advocacy. After she made those instructions and we had that website, I'd always wanted to get it through to Lego, but I really didn't know how to go about it. To infiltrate such a massive company, you need to know people.
His first attempt, contacting Lego customer service, didn't yield any results. But sometimes, all you need is to know someone who knows someone who knows someone.
I was interning at the MIT Media Lab, and I had a friend who worked there, and there's a group there called the Lifelong Kindergarten Group, and they have a very long and fruitful collaboration with Lego themselves. So I went to this friend of mine and I said, hey, I have this project, and I told him about the project, and he said, yeah, I have a friend who just moved to Denmark 2 weeks ago, and he's working with Lego, and I'll send your story along to him and we'll see where that gets you. This friend of his emailed back and he said, oh yes, this is a very interesting story. I'll send it to the head of the new projects division, which is like Lego's version of DARPA, all their secret, mysterious projects that no one really knows about until they get released. And then when I got in touch with this guy, Olaf Gerlefsen, that was really a pivotal moment because this guy was in on it. He wanted this to happen as much as I did.
That's known as an internal ally, someone in the organization to help advance your cause.
Mind you, this guy had no connection with blind people. He had just never thought about blind children as a possible segment of people who could enjoy Lego and their instructional aspect just as much as sighted children, just because he never met blind children. And when he realized the impact that this could make on blind children, he bulldozed his way forward through the ranks of the company. He talked to the head of Lego, Kjeld Christensen, who runs the company now, and Kjeld Christensen was very enthusiastic. And when your project goes that high up, I mean, it's going to go somewhere.
And it did. Lego decided to produce the instructions.
The Lego Foundation, they're kind of their charitable, we have cool projects arm. They were showing off these instructions. They just wrote me an email and they said, we have a press conference. We want you to present. Could you come? And we also want to introduce you to all the people who've been doing this. Could you spend 6 days in Denmark? And I was like, well, I guess I can. It was a conference of Lego fans. They're very committed. They have blogs and websites and YouTube channels. We are showing the kind of the text-based instructions and comparing them to the graphical ones and just kind of talking about the thrill of being able to build on your own. And just the response from these people was amazing. They and I are just united by a love of Lego. And it was amazing to see how touched these people were by these instructions and by the spreading of this medium to people who previously could not engage with this medium as your average sighted person could. So that was just a really energizing moment.
Are you still working with the company?
Very much. I do quality assurance, checking the instructions and making them as understandable as possible. We're hoping to have 25 to 30 new accessible instructions out in the next couple of months for sets that are currently out.
Users will be able to purchase a Lego set from their favorite retailer and download the instructions from the Lego website, LegoAudioInstructions.com.
Hopefully, they're also going to redesign their packaging so that they can braille the numbered bags. I don't know how long that's going to take, but that's just something that they've been looking into. And hopefully that would happen.
Wow. I really shouldn't have such a reaction in 2020. Unfortunately, the response from Lego isn't the norm. Even companies who make their product accessible, packaging, that's another story.
When Dina and I were making these instructions on our own, we really wanted blind children to have the complete experience of building the set. So we would describe the box art and the advertisements in the backs of the manuals and the art and the little prints on the little Lego people, because we really wanted the blind child to engage with the set as much as a sighted child could. And it's wonderful to see that carry over to Lego's instructions. They describe the little Lego people and they describe this and that, and they really kind of energize the experience. They really guide you through the building process. And they compliment you once you finish something. They're like, congratulations, you finished the car. An adult might kind of get annoyed by this, but for children, this is what they need. When they're first getting into Lego, it's really important for them to feel really included in the process and engaged by the process, not just I'm stacking pieces, but hey, I built a thing. Now I can revel in this thing and then can move on to the next part of the build. The fact that Lego are really making their instructions so human, I'm very glad that they're doing that.
It's funny because you said adults may get annoyed, but I don't know. I guess I'm coming from a particular perspective. When I became blind as an adult, I had small-sighted children. But man, I wish I had a Lego set with accessible instructions to actively engage in with my kids. I did have a set of Braille Uno cards. That was one of the ways I practiced Braille. Unfortunately, my daughter, only 3 years old then, would beat me constantly, and it just wasn't much fun. And for the record, I didn't let her win. I'm not that type of parent. She was just a little card shark. I'm still not over that. Matthew recently found a cool way to pair Lego bricks with a new interest.
A few months ago, I started climbing with a team of disabled rock climbers. I saw that the blind rock climbers were really struggling because there's a person at the bottom of the climbing wall who yells directions at you. And that's great because then you can get up to the top, but you have no opportunity to think ahead and really plan for yourself, as opposed to the sighted climber who is able to come up to the wall, look at it, and really strategize as to where they put their various appendages. I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to make a Lego-based mapping system for rock climbing?
Next time he went to the rock climbing gym, he brought his Lego bricks and figured out a method for mapping the wall.
Different types of pieces are used for different types of holds. 2x1s are jugs, which are large rounded holds. And then 1x1s are crimps, which are smaller pinchable holds. 3x1s are ledges. And 1x1 flat round pieces are footholds.
The map is laid out by working with that sighted person who yells directions.
They can do it in a matter of minutes, a minute or less. And so this could easily be used in climbing competitions.
And then the person right before they're climbing could actually just kind of go through it. Now, do you retain that information?
I try to retain, but sometimes when someone yells out, it's also useful because you're able to correct yourself on the fly and you're able to kind of rethink your process. If you've taken a slightly different path up than you initially estimated, the yelling person is really valuable because they're able to make you reassess your situation in a very sensible way.
You're younger than me, man, and I don't retain as much anymore. Has this made an impact on your view of advocacy? Do you have intentions on kind of moving forward and doing more of this type of thing?
I have a comic book accessibility project where I'm building a virtual reality headset for blind people with engineers at MIT. This headset makes you feel different motions by affecting your sense of balance and messing with it.
It sounds like the lessons learned with Lego are being applied to his latest project.
I thought about the way that comics were made, and I found that comic books run on scripts. And these scripts are like movie scripts, and they're incredibly detailed, and they tell the artist exactly what to draw and how to draw it. I thought, this is our way in. What I need to do now is to network with authors and artists and comic book companies. I've been in talks with Marvel Comics, and combining this helmet that we're working on with their comic books really provides a new dimension to their work, be you blind or sighted. The most engaging aspects of advocacy are the total strangers who owe you nothing, but who are still incredibly enthusiastic. I go to comic book conventions every year to network with authors and kind of tell them about the project and blind people and how comics help blind people learn about the world around them, et cetera, et cetera. These people are really energized by the fact that comics are being interpreted in a new way. I am a random blind guy with ideas. When I come up to their table and say, hey, I'd like to kind of look into how you write. Are any of your scripts available on your website? Could I figure out how to do this and make this accessible? They don't owe me anything. They can say, oh, I'm sorry, I only sign books. Goodbye. But no, they're thrilled that comic books are going beyond the newsstand, beyond the bookshelf, even beyond the television screen into new mediums. The more success you have with advocacy, the more energized you are to go out there and advocate more and make more things accessible to blind people or disabled people or whoever.
Matthew's latest project is looking at a different sort of access.
We have practically no blind people in the mainstream podcasting space. And it's interesting because podcasting seems to be such a blind-friendly medium. But when you look at places like, I don't know, NPR, the major broadcasters, no one there is blind. I started a podcast called Blind Guy Travels. First couple of episodes are hopefully going to come out in the next month or two. It takes these mundane experiences like going to the movies or gesturing or making funny faces from the standpoint of a blind person. I'm doing it with Radiotopia, who are the kind of podcast branch of NPR.
This story of making accessible Lego instructions is not only about the power of individual advocacy, the importance of stimulating a child's imagination, but also one of friendship and commitment.
When Dina died, she left a couple of instructions for sets that we hadn't built yet. And it's interesting now finishing those sets and building them and just kind of keeping the energy alive. Lego will do their own thing, but hopefully Lego for the Blind will do its own thing just because Lego are going to start adapting sets from a certain year. Everything before then will be inaccessible. I have a list of sets that people want made accessible, and the goal will be to find instruction writers. I can teach them easily how to do this. And the goal will be to find instruction writers and kind of encourage them to craft instructions and keep the Lego for the Blind website growing and going beyond what Nita and I had done.
How many times have we heard a picture is worth 1,000 words? I don't think we need 1,000 words to describe the benefit of making the images that are the Lego instructions accessible.
I just remember building that set and feeling completely very free.
If you're interested in helping this effort, or just want to know more about any of the projects mentioned, or more about Matthew, including his music, contact them.
On Lego for the Blind, there's a contact us link at the bottom, and they can find me there. I'm on Twitter at Matt Shifrin, Matt with one T, and on YouTube, I am Shifrin2002.
If you like what you heard here, all I ask is that you share the podcast. It's safe. You don't have to be within 6 feet of anyone to do so. Just send a text, an email, a tweet, a post on FB. Let them know you're listening to something that you really dig. Feel free to use my 1970s slang, or just say you find the podcast enjoyable and informative. It's available wherever you get podcasts. Transcripts, links, and more can be found at readmymind.com. Just make sure you let them know. It's R to the E-I-D.
D, and that's me in a place to be.
Like my last name. Peace.